when you came to AEW, you getting to do the stuff with Christian has just been so fun to watch because it always felt like there was just more that you guys could do together, more that you
Yeah,
guys could do. How special was that for you to get to do it?
it was great. The fact that we had our first kind of reunion in front of no one during a pandemic for the Royal Rumble, that one's still kind of, man, imagine if that were in front of an audience. So going to AEW felt like we could finally get that. And also be given more freedom to tell the story between us that I felt like could be told at this stage of our careers. When we first wrestled each other way back, we weren't ready, and I don't think the audience was ready to see Edge versus Christian. By this stage, they're ready. They're ready to see, Christian versus Cope. And so it was fun to be able to like tell the kind of story that we always thought we could at a certain point. We weren't ready back then. We realized it about halfway through that story, but we've both learned so much since then, and we're 20 years removed or more from that. Just felt like we could really tell the kind of story that we want to tell now, and I like to think we did. It was fun.
So I've got a bunch of different kind of topics I want to fire at you quickly. So you're one of the guys that's kind of it's a rare group of guys who, you were in WWE, Vince leaves, Hunter takes over, that transition period, right? Of like it's been the same way for however long, it's now
Yeah.
changing. From a talent perspective, was there a stuff to adapt to, or was it kind of business as usual?
I just for a while there, I didn't know who was in charge. I just didn't know, and it was a little confusing. It was right as my contract was coming up. So my contract was up. I had negotiated with Vince, and Vince was gone. So I was like, what's this mean? And then it was like, okay, well your contract offer is still there. I was like, okay, I just got to think about this now because I've always dealt with him, and that's just always the way since my second contract on. It's always been okay. What do you think? What do you think? Shake hands. That's it. Um, so that changed for me. I was like, okay, I got to sit back and think about this. And then just in talking to Jay, talking to FTR, talking to Jericho, talking to some of the guys there, they're like, man, you'd have a blast over here. And so, you can say it was taking a risk, but like in WWE, it would have been too because it's an entirely new creative direction, right? And I just thought, hey, my three best friends are over there. Let's go have some fun. And my daughter, my oldest daughter, put it as succinctly as you can. She goes, "Go have fun with Uncle Jay." Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, too old at this stage not to have fun, and
Yeah.
and not to say it wouldn't be or this or that or the other. So nobody can jump on that and turn it into anything. But I just think going there, working with Jay, and now working with FTR, I just thought it'd be a lot of fun, and it has been.
One of the podcasts I do is watch like WWE pay-per-views from 20 years ago and podcast about them.
Yeah,
And, and watching you return in 2004 as kind of babyface Edge, and just as that year went on, it seemed like when you finally got to go heel, a switch flipped and you just became for you when it was going on, you came back from the long injury, you're a babyface. Did the heel turn really kind of give you new life like it felt like it did watching it on screen?
it did. Yeah, because I felt like it was in a really good groove before I got hurt. It was Eddie, and it was Kurt, and it was a lot of really fun matches. We had the SmackDown 6, and just it felt like there was a ton of momentum, and I felt like I'd finally found my baby face feet, and then had to get neck surgery. So coming back from that, I just assumed, okay, pick up right where we left off because the babyface thing was going good, and come back doing the same thing, and people were kind of like, "Hey," and it was the SummerSlam in Toronto, my hometown, that really solidified. Okay, we got to make the change. They want it now. I want it. Let's go. And so it was really fun to bite into that. And like anything that generally works in wrestling, there has to be an element of truth to it. So there was an element of really my hometown coming back after neck surgery. I'm IC champion. They're going to boo me, right? Now let's give you reasons, and that was really fun to come up with reasons. I keep saying fun, but that's the recurring theme with this job. It's you jump around in tights for a living, and it's theater of the absurd. So it is fun.
As we record this, we're coming up on 20 years for the anniversary of Money in the Bank, the first match.
Is
And
it
it's,
Jesus?
I'm curious though, because for you, you'd been in all these ladder matches before. So some might think, oh, Edge in this ladder match, that seems like, but in your mind, you'd done that a lot before.
Yeah.
Was there a sort of, you know, resistance or to do it or to go back to kind of the ladder match scene again? How did you feel about it at the time?
Yeah, I said I don't want to be in it. And I said I really like just the ladder thing. It feels like a crutch now. And it definitely feels like a crutch for me. Like you don't have anything in me for me, so just chuck me in a ladder match. And I feel like Christian was put in that. I feel like after the Money in the Bank, Shelton got put into that role, and it's not a bad role again, but at a certain point, you go, okay, I got to move past this. I got to get past these to get to where I want to get to, which is the main event, you know. And um, I didn't realize that Money in the Bank would be the springboard to that. And so I had to be talked into it. But I'm glad I was. And truth be told, I just got sick of bumping off of ladders too because it hurts. There's just no good way to do it.
I do have to ask you, what did you make of the John Cena heel turn? Finally, after all these years, John Cena turning into a villain.
I think it's great. I think it's great, and I'm sure John will have a blast with it too. You know, I'm sure he's had a lot of built up ammunition that he can use, you know, going forward. Which you know, anytime that you can get people talking like that and get this tried and true, you know, dyed in the wool baby face to finally flip sides, it's interesting.
We spoke to Heath Slater last month, you know, and he was singing your praises, was Heath, and he was saying that the 2010 SummerSlam, you and Jericho really went to bat for him, bat for Nexus at that SummerSlam. What do you remember about having to kind of go to bat for them, you know, for them to win that match?
We just felt like you got a group of heels here who got some steam, and that can be rare. So you want to try and capitalize on that. And it really dawned on me. I want to say it was Sacramento, and it was Team WWE and Nexus, and we were all lined up, and you could feel the building rumbling. And I was like, "Ooh, this is something. We got something here." So when I heard the finish, I was like, "Well, it's gonna kill off what is already happening. That seems a shame." And but at the end of the day, it's like, you know, I don't write the finishes, so all you can do is pitch your idea. But you know, contrary to what everyone seems to believe, it's up to the final boss to decide who goes over. So
And you
yeah.
mean Tony Khan, not The Rock, in that instance, by
Yeah,
saying,
yes, yeah, or Vince.
or Vince.
In terms of Nexus Team WWE, Vince.
Whatever final boss is applicable at that time.
Yes, yes, yeah, I
Um,
didn't even think of that.
you know, it's so funny when you think about Judgment Day and the run. You know, you started with them and Dominic Mysterio today, and you know, you almost forget. It seems like a million years ago that he kicked you in the balls in Cardiff, and that started. Did you sort of see this run that he's having in him when you guys were kind of doing that at the start?
I didn't know that it would go where it did, but when I heard the reaction that night, I realized, okay, again, you pay attention to the reaction as it happens, right? So that caused me to go, whoa, they 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 wanted to see this, or they were ready for this, and then you know they took it and ran. You know, just to see where he's come. You know, I had his first match as a heel, and it was the main event on Raw in Portland, and you know, I just remember he had a lot of nerves, but he pulled it off, and he's been crushing it. He really really has. I don't know if I saw the extent of what it would turn into though. Um, you know, I thought everyone in Judgment Day could be that, but when you know I was presented with the idea of having a group, I initially you know thought Finn, Damien, and Rhea, um, because the thought of Dom didn't wasn't wasn't even applicable then, you know. So I always felt like a proud papa in a way, seeing how well they all did. coming off of that, and what they did with it after, I was told I got to go babyface again.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier, but when you came back at Royal Rumble in 2020, and you and Randy Orton had the hottest feud going into that WrestleMania by far. Every week it was just like the crowd were going crazy. How do you kind of react to there's a worldwide pandemic, we're now shutting things down, and it kind of completely changes your WrestleMania match of what it's going to be?
Yeah, that and the Christian reunion and the Rumble were kind of the two things. I'm like, man, obviously much bigger things going on. The
Yeah.
worldwide pandemic is
Yeah.
much more important than Randy and I seeing our story through properly. But that being said, I feel like it really hurt the momentum of our story for sure, because man, when we were doing it in front of audiences, that crowd they were white hot for it. And then you go to just, who knows when we get back, and there's hundreds of thousands of people that, like, it's just such an odd time. And then to do a WrestleMania in the Performance Center, no people, and just it's just two dudes. You just hear the meat smacking, and it's just like, oh God, is this even worth it? And it was. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
because we supplied entertainment for people during a really weird time. But I really wish we could have had that Mania match in front of a crowd so they could get with the 10 counts, and I definitely wish that Backlash match could have been in front of more than just 20 students at the PC for sure, because I'm still really proud of that match and the circumstances that Randy and I were put in to try and pull something off there. Pretty ridiculous. You know, you call me and tell me, okay, we're going to build the greatest wrestling match ever, only there's no audience. Well, A, what does that even mean? There's no such thing as the greatest anything unless you're in an actual athletic contest. Like, we know who the best hockey team is, they win the Stanley Cup. There's no such thing as the greatest wrestling match because it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
But okay, here we go. Let's give something a shot here. And it was super fun. It was really, really. It was a great challenge. But I wish that one had an audience for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you guys did such an amazing job with no audience. I mean, I can imagine what would have happened if you'd had one.
Well,
Um,
that's I know that's like, man, with a crowd, they would have been all over that. It would have been so much fun. But
I'll just get a couple of last AEW questions. I do need to answer this one. Feel free to say whatever you want to say. I feel like it's been really overblown, but the promo with you and Ricky Starks in October 2023 on
yeah,
Collision, it's kind of become this like big thing. I mean, do you consider it a big thing? How do you feel about it? We've not really heard from you.
I mean, it's not a big thing to me. It's one of 1,000 promos I've done over the years. If you look back to like the early 2000s and mid 2000s, all our promos were that way. So I think they just don't happen often now. So everybody, I guess, thought it was a big deal. But for me, it's like, oh, well, once it was done, it was done. Okay, what's next week?
You then had, the big barbed wire steel cage match with Malachi Black at Double or Nothing, and I think I don't want to say people didn't expect that you were going to be having those kind of matches, but I feel like before you went to AEW, people were probably not expecting barbed wire steel cage matches from you.
Yeah.
And you have it. I just want to know. Obviously, it was very well received, and it was a great match. When you're up on the top and you're about to do the leap and you do it, what's going through your mind of the kind of adrenaline, what happens, and kind of the realization of what's going to happen?
Well, it's in my last run there with WWE, though, I was in two Hell in a Cell matches, between Finn and Seth. So I'd still occasionally do those. But this one, it's probably upped a little bit with the barbed wire and everything like that. And, I just, some with that, it was one of those deals where my mind doesn't remind me I'm 51. This time, though, I will say I got to the top of the cage and I went, huh. And I never do that. I usually just get up and go. Now I went, huh. And then I went. Like, there was a half a second of, this should be interesting. And I contemplated a splash, but then I thought, well, he might not survive that. An elbow, I think he can survive. um, and I just assumed I would, because I do. So it just ended up being a broken leg. But even during I finished the rest of the match, and I knew something was up, but I thought maybe like a bone bruise, because I walked to the back, I walked to the trainer's room, I walked out of the arena, I walked into the emergency room, and then they took X-rays and said, "Why are you walking, dumbass? You have a broken leg." I'm like, oh, right. So it's just it's one of those things, man. You get in there and you try and put on a good show, and adrenaline can do amazing things.
I mean, and you talked earlier about who you want to work with in AEW and all the kind of different stuff. You know you're winding down. That's something
Yeah.
you've talked about. What are the goals or things that you would like to do in the time that's left in the ring?
Um, more than anything, I want to make sure that whoever it is at the very end, that we can put the biggest exclamation point on them possible, so that they can take that going forward, whoever that is. And I guess just making sure that it sticks. So you got to make sure you can't do it for everybody. You got to make sure that when you do it, it's done right, so that like I said, it can stick, and now that person going forward can have that thing. So I don't know what the scenario is, and honestly, at the end of the day, it's okay. What do you need? Who do we want to light up? How do you want to get there? Do this, and again, point me in that direction.
And then my very last thing is, if you were to sit down and speak to little Adam at WrestleMania 6 at the Sky Dome, who's about to
Yeah.
watch Hulkamania be killed by the Warrior, and he was to see all the stuff that you've done, what do you think he would say?
Hold on tight, kid. It's gonna be a blast. And I think about it constantly, actually, just how rare it is to get the thing that you wanted, to go after the job that you wanted, to get it, and then be able to do it your entire adult life, have it taken away, but then get it back again. Man, I mean, it's all good. That's the thing I would tell young Adam. Be prepared, because there's going to be times, just like anything, you're going to fall flat in your face, but you just got to pick yourself up. It's the same thing I tell my girls now. If something feels like a failure, it's not, because you can take a learning experience from it. And I think that's more than anything what I would say is, yeah, you'll probably screw up. Yeah, this will happen, that'll happen, but you can learn from it. And I that's what I did anyway. But it would have been nice for someone with a like a grizzled veteran to tell me that.